Hi, I'm Lisa Silhavy, and this is Substance Abuse 661, and I'm interviewing Sarah. She is a student at University of Louisville in the social work department also, and we are doing a fictional scenario because I did not have a client to interview. So we're going to talk to Sarah today about some problems that she's having related to alcoholism and work-related issues. And she also is suffering from depression and anxiety. She also uses cannabis, and so she qualifies as alcohol use disorder moderate and cannabis use mild. So Sarah, what brings you in today?
I've just been having problems being able to focus with work, and I just feel like maybe my drinking is getting a little out of control.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little further when you say out of control? Can you describe that for me?
I'm basically drinking every single day, mostly after work, but sometimes during work.
Okay. And when you drink at work, are you drinking in your car? Are you drinking in your office?
Well, I work from home, so I will be like calling clients and also drinking at the same time.
So tell me a little bit about your work and about what you do, if you can.
I do case management with people with SPMI, basically to help them with ensure their Medicaid coverage. So a lot of my work I do basically over the phone, just like doing contacts and making referrals. But occasionally I do actually have to go on home visits.
Okay.
So.
And so do you feel like the alcoholism has affected your, can you give me some examples of ways that your alcoholism has affected your work?
Basically,
or your alcohol intake?
Mostly I drink in the evenings, and I just find it really hard to get up in the morning after I've been drinking all evening. So I'm supposed to get up and have my computer on and start work at 8 a.m. But sometimes I don't get out of bed in time, or sometimes, I wake up but I just can't get motivated, or I'm hungover, and so I don't start work until around like 10. And then I've actually called and canceled appointments because I've either been too hungover or I didn't want to go to a client's house because I was afraid they would smell alcohol on me.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you tell me, do you remember when you started drinking? How long ago, when you started drinking the first time in your life, how old were you? The first time you ever tried alcohol or drugs?
I probably was, the first time I ever smoked marijuana, I was 13. And the first time I tried alcohol, I was probably about 17.
Okay. And then with this intake of alcohol that you just described as problematic, when did you start drinking every day or more frequently, or when did you notice that you were having an increase in the frequency or amount that you would take in?
Probably about a year ago, when me and my husband separated.
Okay. Can you tell me about that time in your life?
Yeah, basically I was in the process of like switching jobs to the job I have now, and I was just really depressed and anxious, and I couldn't sleep without drinking. And so it just became, before then I really drank maybe like a glass of wine a couple times a month. Okay. And then after that it was every single night, and it has been for like a year.
Okay. So wine is your alcohol, is your drink of choice?
It is, yes.
Okay. And when you started drinking, compared to when you first started drinking to now, are you having to consume more wine
in
order to?
My tolerance is definitely, building. Yeah, so I used to just drink like one glass, like I said, maybe a couple times a month. Like a bottle would last me the whole month, and now I go through about 3 bottles a week.
Oh, okay. So you would definitely have increased your tolerance.
Yes.
And when you think about this and you realize it's problematic, what have you done to try to stop or control, or have you noticed that you aren't able to
I thought maybe I could like taper myself off of wine by drinking beer.
And how did that work?
Well, now I'm drinking both wine and beer, and then I've also added in marijuana to kind of, so I don't have to drink as much wine, but I don't know, it's kind of more of a mellow buzz, I guess.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. And so when you drink
Yeah.
and you smoke the marijuana and it makes you buzzed, do you then feel like relieved? How do you feel?
it kind of just makes me feel numb, so I can not really focus on everything that I have going on.
Tell me more about what you have going on. Tell me some things that are going on in your life right now. You said your work.
Yeah, work is not going great. I guess maybe because I don't really do my job, so it's kind of like biting me in the butt a little bit because I've just kind of been slacking for a year. I don't like the job at all, and I don't like my supervisor. So all of those things, plus still the stress of, of being like by myself and kind of having to pay bills, and I can't really quit this job without having another job. So I'm just kind of always in trouble at work, which adds more stress, which makes me want to drink and smoke more.
Yeah.
So just kind of everything just keeps piling up on me.
Yeah. So, have you talked to anybody at your work about, have you discussed any of your problems about like the depression or the anxiety or the way that you feel with any of your coworkers or your employer?
I kind of told my boss a little bit that she knew I was going through a divorce when I got the job, and yeah, she just really is not very, I don't know, she's not easy to talk to about it.
So she hasn't been supportive
Not even a
when
little
you've
bit.
when you've
No.
talked to her and confided
She
in
basically says, I know you're going through a divorce, but your work's not, you're not cutting it at work, and I know that you have a lot going on, but you need to leave your personal life at home.
Yeah.
So
So when you think about your work and you think about the level that you would like to work at, and when you set yourself a goal or you set yourself a bar, do you set it really high? Like you need to
Yes.
be
I'm
the best
definitely an
at the
overachiever.
job?
Yeah, I'm definitely an overachiever. And definitely at my last job, I never had any issues, and I always met my goals, and I always exceeded them. But at this job, I'm just not even, I mean, I feel like I'm doing okay, but I'm not really exceeding any goals like I'm used to.
Do you think that part of that lies with your disinterest in the job?
I think part of it is that I don't like the job.
And the drinking and the
A part of it is
depression.
definitely like that I'm depressed all the time, that I'm anxious. I'm having constant panic and anxiety attacks, and just no motivation. I do not like my supervisor. I don't like the job.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot. You got a lot going on.
yeah.
So let me just recap what you've told me, and
Okay.
then you tell me if I have everything okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you started a job about a year ago, about the same time, which was a big life change. You were also going through divorce.
Yes.
With the divorce, there came, situational depression and situational anxiety. But then, in order to treat that, you began drinking, and then eventually had to lead to drinking more, and now consuming cannabis in order to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
You are having work-related problems. Your boss does not seem to be fair to you, and you feel like that she isn't being nice to you, and that you also realize that part of that lies with you, because you also realize that you are not pulling the weight that you would think that you should in this job, because you're noticing that you have more ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
Your last job, and if you think about your last job, you also weren't under the stresses that you're under now.
Yeah.
You're not you didn't go through a divorce, you're not having the anxiety of living by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and the other things that go along with that. Does that
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
does that sound like I've summed it up?
Yeah, and then also, I didn't mention, but, I actually am on, antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication,
Mhm.
which I, have tried throughout the years, but never have been on for a year.
Mhm.
And I've been on, trying to find the right antidepressant for me for like a year, which I think I finally found one, but, um, just it getting in my system is kind of making me struggle a little bit too. And then the ones that I had tried before this, actually, made me suicidal. So I kind of was doing that and work and, you know, feeling suicidal. And then that leads me to drink and do other things. So
So when you describe this year, you could say that this year has been pretty.
probably the hardest year of my entire life. Yeah.
So let's look at that. What kind of things have you done this year to try to? We're talking about a lot of things that are happening that you're using to cope.
Mhm.
What other things have you used? Can you think of some positive things that you've done that have helped you cope with stress and with the life change? Can you think of anything that you've been doing?
Positive
Yeah.
things that I've done this year. Um, uh,
Did you buy your own home?
I did. I bought a house.
Yeah. Which is a big achievement for
yeah.
somebody that just got divorced.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also adds an element of
Stress.
stress.
Yeah.
Because then you are a homeowner.
Yep. That's very stressful. I think of that more as stress than a positive, really.
Yeah.
And I try to not, because it should be a positive, but I can really only like focus on like the burden of now I have a house and house payment, and I'm all by myself.
Yeah.
So
When you relate to feeling all by yourself, have there been times in your life when you felt all by yourself? Before the divorce?
when I was married, I guess I felt all by myself.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I was pretty like, I don't know. I felt like I had a lot of the burden of financial burden in the marriage. Even though he made more money, I paid the most bills because he was so bad with money. So, and a lot of the financial burden just kind of fell on me for holidays, for any major expenses. I felt like I always had to have a backup savings account that he didn't know about because he was so bad with money.
So it sounds like you're pretty resilient.
Yeah.
And you have an ability to save money.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are positive things. When you think about some positive things that you were able to look at a situation and decide that you need to save for the future, and you realize that that's important, and a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
So that's a
true.
really good thing that you do.
Yeah.
So let's go back and talk about the alcohol intake a little bit.
Okay.
Have you considered, when you think about the alcohol, do you consider yourself an alcoholic? Like, if you would say, I think I'm an alcoholic, what do you think? How do you feel about that?
I guess I don't consider myself an alcoholic because I feel like I could stop.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody told me the exact same thing and how they use it to cope, and they kind of are as dependent on it as I am, I would probably say that they were an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't consider myself an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Although it does run in my family, so, because my dad's an alcoholic.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay. And so you grew up in a home with an alcoholic father?
Yes.
Yes. And how was that as you were growing up? Can you describe your childhood, adolescent years?
Sure. I grew up with, my dad raised me from age 9 on as a single parent. And he, worked in like manual labor. So he drank like every single night. I didn't have a relationship with my mom after the age of 9 because she, left after the divorce. And she just really wasn't interested in being in my life at all. So, it was really hard because my dad was an alcoholic and he did work all the time. and he wasn't really equipped to be a single parent. And he never remarried, so, and I have a little brother, he's 2 years younger than me. So I kind of felt like I took on like the mom role for him and the wife role even for my dad. And my dad is very like traditional, and women have roles and men have roles. So I also took on the house cleaning, the cooking, you know, when I was 9. So yeah.
So you've had a lot of responsibility from a very young age.
Yes.
And that feeling of being alone sounds like maybe that has been with you since you were younger.
Probably.
Because we talked about how you felt alone in your marriage,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe even in your childhood and teenage years,
Probably.
you felt alone.
Probably.
Yeah. Was your dad supportive of you, like while you were in school and like to go through school when you were, because he's got those traditional values?
Yeah.
Did he support you in what you wanted to do in your life?
My dad is extremely sexist, and he really was not. I mean, he didn't really have any interest in what I was going to do in the future. He really wasn't supportive. He really takes like the automatic, like whatever I say, like he's a man, so he knows better. You know, when I said I was going to college, he said, you can't afford it. When I said that I was going to be a social worker, he said, you should be a nurse. So he just really was like, anything I say, he's like, oh, well, how much money do they make? Well, you're never going to be able to support yourself. You're going to have a husband. So, yeah. But my brother, he grew up to be an iron worker like my dad. And my brother barely graduated high school, but he's still way smarter than me. He's successful no matter what he does. So, yeah. My dad's extremely sexist.
And you're pretty hard on yourself sometimes.
I feel like you have to be successful.
Yeah. So you have a successful drive
I do.
instilled in you from early on.
Yeah.
And you also feels like it sounds like maybe you have a financial drive, because I hear a lot of financial undertones. Like you want to be able to save.
When we grew up was how poor we were. So it was really important for me to make more money than my dad, because I didn't want to grow up poor. Yeah. And I didn't even realize how much money my dad made, but my dad definitely made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But he was really into saving money, not spending it. Like, we shopped very like cheap and thrift, and all I heard anytime I asked for anything, I was terrified to ask for anything really when it wasn't my birthday or Christmas, because we don't have the money, we can't afford it. Like, I honestly thought that we were on the brink of being like starving and homeless growing up.
Wow.
And it really wasn't until college, when I was applying for financial aid, that I realized how much money my dad made.
So that was kind of an eye-opener for you,
Yeah.
then, because you had struggled all this time and felt insecure,
Yeah.
I would say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got called poor growing up, and whenever I went to fill out my FAFSA and I saw how much money my dad actually made, like, I was mad that we lived so frugally, and then I was like called poor when he obviously made enough, and we weren't really on the brink of starvation like I thought.
Yeah.
And then I really like started looking into careers and stuff, and realized that I will never make as much money, definitely not doing social work, as my dad made. And that really, you know.
And how does that make you feel?
I feel like I mean, I get it, because I also am like terrified of being broke and homeless and all of these things. So I feel like, to an extent, like, he taught me how important money was, but the stress of being like a little kid and thinking that you're going to end up homeless, or thinking that if you ask your dad for a new pair of shoes, that it's going to mean that he can't eat lunch for 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, that's not really healthy either.
It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any extreme thoughts like that now, like with yourself, or that you practice, like, okay, well, I can't buy myself this because I might need this, or
Yes.
do you not let yourself get things that you may
Yeah.
want?
When I was like a teenager and I first got I got my first job, and my brother was the same way. We both like were so bad with money because we never had it, that we struggled to really balance wants and needs. And like my bank account was constantly overdrawn because, I just bought whatever I wanted because finally I had money and I could treat myself. But now that I'm older, and he's the same way now too, we really like are big on having, like, we have a goal where we have to have this much money in our savings account, or we're not comfortable, and we do kind of like deprive ourselves, just in case something horrible happens that we can't predict. So yeah, we both do that, and my dad encourages that.
Yeah.
He's constantly still, I mean, I'm 32 and he's like asked me today, how much money do you have in your savings?
Yeah.
And if it's, and like I lie to him, because if I tell him the exact amount, like if I say I have $100, he'll say, well, you get paid this much, and he'll budget my money out and tell me exactly how much money I should have.
Right.
So
you feel like even as an adult, you're a little still micromanaged by your dad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Major.
When you drink, does the feelings that you have about the stress of not having enough money in savings, or the stress of the things that happened when you were younger, or just all of it, does it just all go away? Like, you don't have to worry, you don't think about any of it?
Honestly, it kind of depends, because sometimes I drink and I don't think about anything, like I'm just numb. And sometimes I drink and it's like 1,000 times worse, and I think about it and I just sit and cry.
So let's go back to what we talked about with when I asked you about being an alcoholic. Okay, and you said if somebody told you the same things that you were telling them, that you may think that you were an alcoholic, that they were an alcoholic, but you would not necessarily ascribe that term to you.
Sure.
So let's talk about, have you ever been involved in like 12-step meetings, or about anything like that? Have you ever been to an AA meeting, or?
No.
Okay, so the first step in AA,
like I don't need it.
yes, that's okay. So let me just tell you a little bit about AA, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how people in Alcoholics Anonymous, when they come to terms with the fact that they have a disease of alcoholism, which is a lot of times family. It follows families, and there is a genetic component. When people, they start to realize that they're powerless over alcohol. Some of the things that you mentioned, when you said that you tried to control it by, I'll wean myself off by drinking beer, or I'll start to smoke cannabis so I won't have to drink as much, so the high will be better.
Yeah.
Those are signs of powerlessness over alcohol. And that is the first step in admitting that you have a problem. When you can say the step one is that you admit that you're powerless over alcohol, and that you're unable to manage your life. So unmanageability comes into that. Can you tell me, we've talked about some things already, but can you tell me some ways that your life has been unmanageable?
Well, obviously, like if I can't make it through a whole work day without drinking, that's probably a problem.
Yeah. That could be a problem. Yeah.
That could be a problem. Or the fact that if I know that I don't have alcohol in my fridge, I have to stop and get it. Like, even, just the comfort of having it there.
Yeah.
And I think in case I need it, I have to have it in my fridge. Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you hear about it from that perspective, does it make you suspect or make you feel like potentially that you have an alcohol problem? that you would
I
think that you
mean,
need to examine more?
When you're making me say that out loud, yes, I clearly have an alcohol problem. So
Yeah.
that seems like I probably would have an alcohol problem. Yeah.
I understand, and it sounds, it's not an easy thing to say, and I don't want to try to pull it out of you.
Yeah.
But if you, I mean,
and I
it would
kind
be
of
something
feel the
that-
same way, you know, sometimes about pot. Like it's kind of getting to that point with pot too, where I'm like, oh, I'm out of weed. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, I can't possibly just go home and like read a book. Like, I've gotta have like, you know, my friends with me there.
Yeah.
So that's probably getting to that point too. So yeah, I probably would say at this point that I am an alcoholic.
Okay. I think that is a good first step. Would you consider meeting with me again and talking about your about discovering your alcoholism? I'm gonna suggest that maybe you go to an AA meeting.
Okay.
And are you fearful about that? You
Yeah.
made a face.
Yes.
So tell me about your fear.
I mean, what if there's somebody that knows me in there, I guess, would be my fear. Or what if I go in there and, like, it makes a lot of sense, and then they tell me I have to stop drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, that is scary.
Yeah. And there's stages, and you may know this already because of your background, but you know, you have pre-contemplation, you have contemplation, and pre-contemplation is when you decide, hey, I might have a problem, and I might need to do something about it. And contemplation is
I
when
feel like I've been in pre-contemplation
for a
for a
while.
couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so maybe moving on, we could maybe examine, you know, looking at how moving forward can have positive changes for your life, and how the consideration of stopping drinking is a consideration. You know what I mean? It's not, it doesn't have to be like you have to stop drinking today. I'm not going to say, oh, Sarah, you never get to drink again. Poof, never drink again, and now it's all gone. I would say that would be ideal, but that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to work. And so the fact that you're considering that you have an alcohol problem, that you consider that you have a cannabis problem, that you I am actually going to an AA meeting on Wednesday, and you could go with me if you would like. It is Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And so if you would like some support, so you don't feel like you were alone, you could we could go together as a counselor and co, you know, and client. And I could show you the ropes, you know, and you know, and that way you don't feel alone.
Yeah.
You know? And that way you can you know, feel connected, because it is a scary feeling to.
It is.
You know, nobody wants to be alone, and nobody wants to not feel supported.
Yeah.
And then knowing that you've worked in a field where people are there, and you know that may know you, and it's just it can be nerve-wracking. So, okay, well, thank you for your time, and we'll talk after your meeting.
Alrighty.
All right.
Sounds good.